Hello and welcome back to She's in Focus, the podcast dedicated to inspiring and empowering female filmmakers and videographers from all walks of life and on every step of their creative journey. I'm your host, Kel Grant, an aspiring filmmaker from New Jersey who's just trying to turn my passion into something more and connect with amazing women who have the same passion for video. One of those being Marissa Cooper, a filmmaker based in Denver, Colorado, who is created social content and told stories of corporate missions in education, medicine, and landscape architecture, along with producing a bilingual training program documenting a medical mission trip and filming weddings and elopements. Marissa is someone I hunted down on social media to get her on the show because I was just blown away by her filmmaking skills and the work that she has in her portfolio. She's here to tell us how in the world she got so damn good. Marissa, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kel. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. All right, let's get right into it. I can't wait to hear some of the details of the projects you've worked on and that you feature on your website. But let's take it back a few steps and really talk about your evolution. First of all, you didn't go to school for filmmaking. You studied marketing at the University of Northern Colorado.
Right.
And now I work full time in marketing, and a lot of what I do is project management and content creation. But marketing is something I think every business owner, especially in the creative fields, has been trying to get a handle on. So what was your program like, your marketing program like, and what would you say you actually learned from it?
Ooh, that's taking me back that's like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the marketing, it really just set the foundation of where I am now. Like, I see there's a lot of similarities between marketing and videography and like presentation, brand image, the messaging behind certain videos. And I think more than anything from school, it was more about my journey and experience in the real world. And that's where I felt like I really accelerated. And also just making new connections within the field also like helped me accelerate to the next level, more than schooling, I would say.
Yeah, so was it a lot of like internships, externships, stuff like that?
No, not really. I think I only had one internship in college, and then outside of college, I got my first job. I was actually at a ski shop before I got my career in marketing, working as a marketing coordinator, handling the science company's social media accounts, their branding, and also they created a educational channel on how they went through the experiments, and I was the writer for those videos.
Wow, so you graduated from college and you actually entered the marketing world after having that ski shop job. So that was what your kind of trajectory was at that point in time. When did the filmmaking come in?
So while I was at that science company, I really, for some reason, wanted to be in broadcast. So my manager at the time, she actually worked for CBS back in the day. She was a journalist and stuff. So she had some connections and intel on the broadcast world. And I was just trying to get my foot in the door. And it actually came about when I went to New York to visit a friend. I was talking to one of my family friends who works at VML Y&R, and just telling him I want to, kind of get into the videography, but I still like marketing sort of thing. And he was like, well, why don't you go visit our office in New York and they can talk to you. So it was more an informational interview. And then from there, I went to the interview, super nervous, didn't know what to expect. And I started talking to their marketing manager, and for some reason, like I asked one question about videography at the very beginning of meeting her. She's like, okay, hold on, let me go get somebody that can answer that for you. And then she brought in my now mentor, Kyle, and Kyle talked to me a little bit. He took me back to his office and we spoke for about an hour. And at the end of our meeting, he gave me his contact information and was like, if you ever want to show me some of your work and like have critiques, I'd be more than happy to. And so I was like, oh, okay, like for sure.
Yeah, so generous.
Yeah, right. I was not expecting that at all. So obviously, like my first edit I sent to him, I was so nervous on what he would say. I'm like, he's going to tear this thing apart. And he did it out of like making me better, because I don't think I would be here today without me risking, not rejection, but like accepting critique and being willing and open to receive that, to know that I will get better. So over the years, I kept in contact with Kyle, kept sending him my work. And then I eventually left the science company And my gears kind of shifted. I didn't really want to pursue broadcast anymore. And then I made it into my current role kind of at the landscaping company. And their first mission was to create a safety and training program that was custom for their team and equipment and their core values. So from there, I developed this program not really knowing much about machinery, still like fresh on trying to learn the videography tactics and techniques and stuff. So I kind of, just took a leap, did what I could, and developed a program that has over 60 videos in English and Spanish going over how to operate equipment, job site behaviors, the company culture, and all that stuff. So that evolved into they also tacked on a marketing role for me. So from there, I used my marketing degree, and then it expanded to making more marketing videos for the company of like our projects, of our design build process. So it's kind of evolved, and I've been very fortunate. The company has given me creative freedom to go out and search for projects and stuff. I'm actually working on, 2 big projects right now. So the company, we've been tending to these gardens at Clayton Early Learning Center, and they're a school in Park Hill, Colorado, which is a very, it's an inner city school. So we maintain the gardens there, and this is our 5th year doing it. And I was like, you know what? I need to create a documentary feature for this school. And so this project has started from there, and I have the creative flexibility to take that on. And also the other project is actually the client brought this up. I was at his property in Evergreen, Colorado. It's a beautiful property. And he was like, you guys should do a video showing the seasons of a landscape and how there's different, different scenes in a landscape and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I brought it back to my boss, and he was like, yeah, totally, go for it. So the past year I've been filming this landscape, and it's so interesting to see how it's evolved. And each time I go to the property, I have my set shot list, but I'll turn a corner a different way and I'll see something completely different that I didn't see before. And I was like, oh, let me give this shot.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of been organic, and just like, the desire to wanting to keep creating too.
Yeah, that role sounds incredible. Can you tell me a little bit about the structure? So you're working, are they a client of yours, or do you work at an agency and they're a client of the agency, or are they a specific client of yours, or do you work for Designscapes Colorado?
Yep. So I work for Designscapes Colorado as their marketing coordinator and videographer. And so the client has been a client of theirs for, I'd say, over a decade now. So when we go out there to do product photo shoots of the property and stuff, I've been out there and I coordinate all of that. So I've been in contact with the client too, and he's aware of what I do at Designscapes too.
Got it. Yep. So do you report to anybody, or are you kind of a self-sufficient department?
Well, it's a mixture of both. Self-sufficient, and I report to the owner, but he's like he likes giving me the flexibility to go out and create, because he's like blown away by the stuff that I can go out and create, and they're very thankful to have me out there. So that's always reassuring.
Yeah. I mean, how did you get that role? How did you meet the owner?
So my dad actually has worked for this company for over 20 years now. And so this role actually came about for that need of, they needed safety videos, and they knew back in the day that I like to mess around with a camera. I'd make like short films with my friends that were like probably like D-rated films, because we look back at them now, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that. So they always knew I had like camera skills and that creativity, and so that's what brought me on. And honestly, it was a blessing too, because my job at the science company actually ended, and I thought I was going to go into broadcast, but the job offer I had fell through, and then this opportunity came about. So I really think that job opportunity kickstarted my career in filmmaking, because if I would have stayed in broadcast, I don't think I would be where I am today, because the roles that I was applying to were sales roles, because I just wanted to get my foot in the door in broadcast. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity came about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when one door closes, another one swings wide open
Right.
for you. That's awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
So how do you still you said you still keep in contact with Kyle? Do you still send him the work that you're doing for Designscapes Colorado? Does he give you feedback on that stuff still?
Yeah, he does. I haven't sent him something in a while, actually, but I probably should. I will actually. But he's even connected me with other creators. Like, I wanted some feedback on a wedding film that I produced, and he gave me some feedback, but he was also like, you should also connect with my friend. Like, she does wedding videography too. And so I connected with her. So it's kind of like snowballed into talking to other people and kind of building my connections.
Yeah, so you are building your portfolio by working for Designscapes Colorado. I mean, the work that you're producing for them, Marissa, let me just say, is next level.
Thank
for
you.
for something like, for architecture or landscaping, like when you think of those fields, I mean, landscaping particularly, like you think like, oh, like when the final product is done, like it's really pretty, but I don't see a lot of like process videos
Right.
or really nicely put together like HR style training videos. And you did an amazing job from the ones that I saw on your website. So I'm sure they're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And we're gonna get into specific details on specific videos I want to pull up and talk about. You're building your portfolio by working for Designscapes Colorado, but you're also kind of venturing into your own filmmaking company and brand. When did you officially launch your company?
Ooh, officially, I would say this year was more official. In years past, it was kind of like I had people knew that I had a videography like passion and background, and then it's like, oh, can you make a video for us for this? And I'm like, okay, sure. And then now I'm more serious into where I want to venture out into other businesses and stuff. And really, my interest is in corporate and also like documentary style filmmaking. And so I figured, ways to expand my portfolio is to connect with other industries. And it's kind of started with like who I know. One of my first like doc projects, I went on a mission trip with this nonprofit called Spine Care International. And they had been going to Belize for, I believe it was 4 years up to this point, trying to get research. They wanted to perform spinal surgeries for, those in need of spine surgeries that couldn't afford it for free. So this trip was years in the making, and I got to be a part of it on the year that they were able to operate on patients. And that trip, they were able to operate on 4 people, and just seeing like the whole process. I don't watch doctor shows or anything. So being in the operating room while they're operating, I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to handle this.
Gosh.
The first time I was like a little woozy, but then after that I was totally fine.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah, it was not my cup of tea, but it was really awesome. And just getting out there, and that was like a free gig. So for me, it was more about the experience, and I love to travel too. So being able to go to Central America and see how people live and just the culture and stuff was awesome too. So yeah, it's mainly come from connections or people I know that work in other industries, my friends, and then, kind of asking them for things in advance. Because never in my life did I think I would film anything medically, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So you're at the point you said you want to focus on commercial and documentary style. But where did the weddings come in though? Because you have quite a few weddings on your website, and they're great. And I thought like, oh, this is definitely the direction she's going in.
Right. The weddings came in. I remember my first wedding I filmed, it was for a friend, and I absolutely hated it because I just wanted to be with everybody, and like I wasn't really focused on filming. I was like, oh, I want to hang with my friends, like they're having such a great time and stuff. And it came a couple of years ago. One of my friends, she told me like, why don't you consider wedding filmmaking? Because it always is a revolving door. Like there's always people that want wedding films and stuff. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about it. Like my first wedding I did, I hated it, so I never wanted to touch it again. But there's a lot in wedding filmmaking that you can learn, and it'll help you with your journey no matter what type of filmmaking you want to make. For me, weddings are very, they're intense, they're quick and stuff, and I get that adrenaline because I used to be a goalkeeper. And I played at the collegiate level too. So kind of getting that quick, fast pace kind of event again in my life was really like exciting and stuff. And it really teaches you to be quick on your toes, but also finesse like your shots and the direction you want to go and make sure everything is right the first time, because obviously there's no second time. You can't be like, hey, I didn't have record on for your kiss. Can you please do it again? Like there's none of that. Seriously. So it has taught me a lot. And, you know, you can get the documentary style filmmaking in wedding films as well, because you are documenting either the whole day or it could be the whole weekend, like with a rehearsal dinner, or just like if it's a destination wedding, just making a whole event of the weekend and stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I've had a few wedding videographers on the show to talk about that, and they always, it's funny, I've never thought about the stress that comes with wedding videography. I mean, you are in charge of documenting a once in a lifetime potentially event. So I mean, yeah, the pressure in that, I you know, I couldn't do it at this point in my skill level for filmmaking.
You might surprise yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I did, I don't know if you heard the story, but I did one back in high school for my cousin, and that was, you know, that was a different story. But yeah, doing one, like, now that I know that I have the filmmaking skills and actually, you know, the other thing about it is valuing your work. I saw that you list your prices on your website. At what point did you start like broadcasting, like, okay, I am worth this amount for this package and this amount for this package? How many weddings did you have under your belt before you did that?
So actually that got implemented this year. I always played with the idea. I think it was also looking at other wedding filmmakers in the area and what they had on their sites, and a lot of them did advertise their prices, same with wedding photographers. And you know, I think it's a good way to either find out like if you and the client are a match, and just being upfront and honest with like, this is what I charge for it, instead of like, you know, I mean, there's pros and cons to having it on the site or like once they contact you they can see, but I don't know, I just think I found it more beneficial to just show like, this is what it is, this is what it's worth, take it or leave it sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely cuts out a lot of the guesswork that can happen when vetting clients or working or beginning your relationship with clients. So what is your mentality around your filmmaking journey? In your submission, you mentioned a quote that you shared, and I'd like you to revisit that if you can, and just tell our audience the quote and what it means to you and how it's kind of guided your filmmaking journey. Yeah,
so the quote that stuck with me is that you're never a master of your craft until the day that you die. And that really stuck with me because, you know, each day is an opportunity to create, whether you are a videographer, a landscape architect, a doctor, or whatever. Like, there's always an opportunity to improve and learn about your crafts. Like, I know where I am today and where I was, let's say, 5 years ago has completely shifted, and that's because I've put in work. Sometimes I've been slacking at it, and I'm like, why am I not continuing to push myself? But I think that quote like applies with anything in life. If you, whether that's weight loss or eating healthy, like if you don't continue to learn about it, how can you expect to get better and be world class, possibly by the day you die?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially in creative fields, I think every project you do is a learning opportunity. There's always going to be takeaways from that to improve on your next project. And it's just this kind of competition against yourself to just be the best version you can be. I think that's definitely awesome.
I felt that for when I went to Belize with the nonprofit, we were supposed to go the next year, but COVID happened. So I was really like bummed because I was like, oh, I have this epic story that I'm going to tell now that I'm familiar with the place and know how things work. So yeah, there's always that drive. And, you know, that's the same thing I experienced with soccer. Like, the only way I was going to get better at my sport was putting in the work and putting in the time.
Absolutely. This is kind of an aside, but I just started playing basketball again. And I thought that after, you know, I stopped playing early college, that I could just kind of hop back on the court with all these young women and keep up with them. My first game, I pulled my hamstring.
Oh no.
And second game I did well, and then the game I had last week, I airballed every shot I took.
No.
So I got to put in the practice,
yeah, exactly.
just like videography.
But it was kind of like riding a bike again. Like, you had the foundation. I mean, you're a little rusty, but you still, like, you knew what to do.
Yes. Yes,
So,
absolutely. But every game is a learning opportunity, just like every project is the same for filmmaking.
very true.
So I want to talk about your business evolution. So you were working, you started, I kind of want to get a timeline here. You graduated college, you worked for the ski shop, you worked for the science company, you wanted to go into broadcast, you ended up kind of changing your trajectory. You got that job at Designscapes Colorado. What year was that when you started with them?
I think it was 2017. Yeah, I've been there
2017.
4 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you were working with them, and then when was it that you started to branch out? Around what year would you say you started to work on your personal projects and build your personal brand outside of Designscapes Colorado?
So I think that was like 2018, 2019. Because 2019 I started filming weddings again. And then, yeah, I think it was mostly 2019 because that's also when I went to Belize. And then, yeah,
Right.
the wedding stuff.
Got it. So 2019 rolls around, you got this awesome opportunity to go to Belize. You're still building your portfolio. You got this awesome gig with Designscapes Colorado. 2020 hits and the pandemic, really hits everybody hard.
Mm-hmm.
How did the pandemic affect your business, and how did it affect your creativity?
There was definitely a shift. I was very fortunate. Our company was deemed essential, and so I was still able to work throughout the pandemic. Granted, I wasn't doing that much videography because obviously I was a little bit nervous, being out in the fields, and then like all of our crews, while they were working, they had to wear masks and stuff. And I was like, I don't really want to show people in this like light because, like people can really connect with faces and seeing, smiles and people's expressions and stuff. So I was very nervous to create. I did mainly project overviews of when we completed a project, when we would go out with the photographer and stuff. So that was the main focus there at Designscapes. And then in my side hustle for the weddings, I had three weddings last year. So one was like a mountainside elopement. Another one was a small ceremony at a country club, and then another one was was kind of a bigger event. That's kind of when COVID started slowing down a bit. So I mean, I still had work, which was very interesting, and I was obviously very thankful for. But as far as like new business, there wasn't a whole lot.
Right, but you still were, fortunate enough to have your job still, and the marketing side of it too, to keep you employed and busy.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. So 2021 comes around. We haven't seen the end of the pandemic, but things are starting to open up, things are starting to improve, vaccines are being administered, and you said 2021, this is the year that you started putting your prices on your website. So what was the evolution from last year to this year like for you as a business owner?
I think it was just that risk. One of the weddings their reception got postponed to this year, and I had gotten a couple other ones beforehand, but again, I saw like my peers in the industry and they had their prices listed. And granted, like wedding videography, it is still like kind of custom, like depending on the location, on where the couple's getting married, or what else extras they want, it changes. So that's why on my wording I have starting at, because when they come and they're like interested in me, I also show them, okay, this is what else you can add to your wedding package. So it gives them a baseline because I know budget's like a huge thing in wedding planning too. So, I want to be respectful of their time, and I want them to be respectful of mine. So I think having that transparency of this is what I charge and this is not changing.
Yes.
It's good for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Both parties for sure. So do you shoot weddings solo?
Yes, right now. I'm still trying to find a second shooter. I mean, it's doable, but it definitely is beneficial to have a second shooter, or multiple cameras too. But
so you're only one shooter, one camera as well.
Well, I expand. So this last couple weddings I did, I had 2 cameras. But again, it's you're definitely sweaty by the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I don't prefer it that way, but I think it's just again, it's still trying to find the community of filmmakers. Like here in Colorado, I know they're out there, but I just don't know where they are. And I guess that's also me like taking a risk and putting myself out there and maybe finding more Facebook groups of, filmmaker meetups and stuff. But it's also hard too because my background was in sports. So I have these core group of friends from sports, and I haven't really created those connections with more people in filmmaking or the creative space. I'm starting to, but it's still a little tough.
Absolutely. And this is a great place to start, being featured on She's in Focus. The female filmmakers will flock to you.
Yes.
I don't know if any of them will be in Colorado, but we'll still,
that's okay,
I'm sure they
too.
know somebody.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
So what would you say the biggest challenge you're facing with your business is at the moment?
Ooh. I would say right now my biggest challenge is I think all the weddings that I've had this year, they've been in a 3-month span. So just having the time of dedicating to editing those films, because, I work full time and still like doing the creative work and also like factoring in like my own health and wellness. Like I need, to do yoga, to meditate, to pray, whatever. And then also balancing, I need to get these projects done and I want to work on them. It's just like dedicating the time to do those sort of things.
Definitely. What does your typical day look like? Because it just, you mentioning it did just click in my head that you work full time, you have your side hustle, you have to keep in mind that you're a person, you have to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. What does your typical day look like? Are you in the office 9 to 5 and then as soon as the work day ends and you work on your personal projects for your personal business?
Yeah, honestly, the days depend. Some mornings I may have a photo shoot in the morning, so I'll go to that, or some days it's just straight to the office. Normally I'm in work by like 7:30-ish. So then that just depends on my duties for the day, whether that's, writing, getting materials together for a news article that we're being featured on, doing social media posts, any other in-house things, branding and all that stuff, content creation. It just depends day to day. And then when I get home, depending on, the project due date, it's like, okay, I need to focus on this today. And then tomorrow I can have rest or whatever. And it's really helped. I do yoga every morning. And I totally think that's benefited me so much, like mentally and physically, to keep like going throughout the day. Cause it's a good start to my day. And I'm like, okay, I'm energized. Like, let's go out and work hard. And
At what point did you implement that practice, like doing yoga every morning to contribute to your health and wellness?
Yeah, I would say that was late November, December. Yeah, I started doing that.
Gotcha. Because I feel like that's the secret. Like everybody just has to find their thing. And I find that creating, a morning routine or a night routine really can help you kind of ground yourself and get what you have to get done for the day without being overly stressed or, without burning out. Because that I'm in the same boat as you. I work full time. I have my side hustle, and then I have this podcast. I have basketball. Like there's other things I'm doing. So it's my days. If I looked at my calendar and I just looked at it based on my calendar, I would be the most stressed out person in the world because I have appointment after appointment after meeting after meeting after project after so. Just finding the little things, like in the morning when I wake up, my routine is like I listen to a podcast, I have my tea or my coffee, I block out my tasks for the day, and then I figure it out. And I notice that when I don't do those things, it throws the rest of my day off.
Right. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Does that happen with you with yoga?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like I think there's one morning I had to leave super early and I wasn't able to get a practice in, and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. But then I came home and did one, or I did a HIIT workout, and then I was like completely fine. But one thing that yoga instructor I do yoga with said is that has stuck with me is like everything is as it should be. And, when we start getting overwhelmed or our schedules gets full, it's easy to get anxiety, stress out and stuff. But that quote has taught me to like know that, okay, these events, they're there for a purpose, and just not to get overwhelmed and take each one by one and just focus on today. Because if I focus on like, oh, I have to do these 5 things next week and I'm not focusing on this week, then, I don't benefit myself at all and I just get stressed out. So I think, yeah, just taking everything one by one. It's easy to get like excited about things and want to, continue to, take on projects and tasks, but you have to remember like, okay, I need to finish this stuff first before I can move on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a kind of one-track mind in a way, like
Exactly.
doing one thing at a time. Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. I will try to like overplan my week. And if I go out more than like a day or two, then I start to get more stressed, even though it's the act of planning. It's the fact that you're not paying attention to the immediate, to what you have to do now. It's like going too far out. So yeah, that definitely resonates with me.
And I think it has to do with our culture too. Like, I'm trying to get away from, I feel like when you ask somebody like, oh, how are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm so busy. But it's like, okay, everybody's busy and stuff. And, trying to move away from that and be like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm doing this, and this, kind of explaining more of what I'm doing instead of just, this is it. Like, I'm busy. I can't even talk to you. Like, just stress and stuff. So I think, part of it comes from our culture. It's like, oh, if you're not busy, then like, what are you doing? But people are always doing something.
Yeah. And I like that. Like, because I feel like when you say I'm busy, it kind of shuts the other person down. Like, you're not inviting conversation even. So if you say, oh, like I'm working on this one really big project, or my line is usually, oh, we have a launch coming up for work, because in the tech industry, that is like the constant in my position of marketing. So I find that definitely invites conversation, and then also doesn't, I don't know, when you constantly say you're busy, it just has such a negative connotation, the word. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that. And then it stresses you out more because you're like, oh, well, it's like signals something in the brain. Like, I'm just so busy. I can't do whatever, or don't want, like, cause you could be busy, but working on something very exciting. And then, sharing that with people is tough because you're like, oh, I'm just busy. It's just an automatic answer,
Absolutely. So I had a question for you, because the landscape architecture field is highly male dominated, I would imagine.
Right. Yes.
Then you go into overlap that with the filmmaking videography space, which is also highly male dominated. So what has been your experience kind of navigating these two spaces as a woman?
Well, there's also a third one. It's very bilingual. There's a lot of Spanish speakers within the landscape industry too. So for me, trying to combat that, I'm very fortunate. I have a coworker that I've worked with, and he is bilingual and stuff. And so he would come out with me on the job sites when we were filming the safety and training videos, and he coins it as he's my glorified translator. Right. And he was. But so like, I think it's just exposing myself out on those job sites and be like, hey, like there's I think also people don't realize how much other things go behind the scenes within landscaping. Like, obviously our crew members they just go job to job and that's what they're familiar with. But then once I was introduced to the company, like they know me as like, oh, you take photos, oh, you take video, like take a picture of me and stuff like that. So it's just like exposing, people to other facets of things that are out there. And now the company, all those people that I go out on the cruise with, they're more comfortable when they see me because they've been exposed to that. And I mean, for the Spanish part, I'm still like, I'm trying to learn Spanish, obviously it takes time, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. And, they tell me that and I'm like, do you understand what I'm saying? They're like, oh yeah, it's really good. I'm like, oh, thank you. It's Duolingo's working.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Duolingo's gotten a lot better over the years too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's really funny. So I want to actually talk about, this is a good segue to get into like your projects now, because when I think about why your films are so effective, I think it honestly comes down to editing. The footage itself is stunning, but it's just the way that you put it together and your storytelling ability and your ability to match the editing style to the specific project. So I want to just kind of break down a few of those projects. So let's talk about the bilingual Spanish
training program.
Sorry. Yeah. The training program, the bilingual Spanish training program. Yeah, let's talk about that. What was the biggest challenge on that one? The language barrier? Like, I couldn't even imagine working on a project in a language that I don't understand. So tell me what that was like.
Right. So when it came to filming out there, granted, I should have done more work on the back end. So say we were filming a tractor for that day. And, I relied a lot on my coworker because he did have landscape knowledge to like, basically write the script for that particular video. So one thing I wish I did back then was, did my own research on what we needed to cover in that instead of just relying fully on him. So we would go out to the job site and, I was still like very timid, like my personality, I'm more of a quiet person. And, I didn't fully know all that I was doing. And, you kind of have to be just confident and just, like dive in and go for it. So I'd kind of let him lead and, I'd get back to the editing room and then I wouldn't be that satisfied with like certain angles that I got and stuff. And, but that was also a learning process of how to get better and what I need to step up and start doing. And then when it came to editing them, so I'd have my scripts written out and I did all the voiceovers for the videos. So I knew what was said and then, had my own script. And then we'd go and have the script translated. And then one of our in-house staff members would do the Spanish speaking portion for those videos. And I was really surprised at myself. Granted, I had the guide of the script, but, like going through and, subconsciously I'm picking up these words and like the meanings of what is being said. So obviously that was enhancing my Spanish knowledge. And then, the landscape industry is tough because everything you do, you have to do it twice. So it's just like a longer process, but I've been learning a lot through it too, as well.
Yeah, explain that phrase. Everything you do, you have to do it twice in landscaping. Why? Just once in English, once in Spanish?
Yep, yes.
Got it.
So everything's twice as long. Yeah.
Right. So so you were a little timid at first with this first video, but you created like 60 videos for this specific program, right? So what, by the end, did you define your process better? Like, did it become easier as you went on?
I think that the obviously experience. And then I think it was, 2018, I joined Full-Time Filmmaker. And, I heard back in one of your old podcasts, like you kind of like let it sit for a while because you're like kind of nervous to get started. And I was like the same way. I was kind of overwhelmed and, I took it as like kind of discrediting my skills and like, oh, well, they're way above me. Like, I don't know if I should be taking this. Like their videos right out the gate, I was like, wow, these look way nicer than my own. But then, I was taking that leap of faith and really diving in, and after the first couple be like, oh wow, this is so beneficial to my learning, and that's like what excelled me to the next step of my films.
Yeah, that program it can be really, really transformative if you dedicate the time to it and you go through the lessons. Even now, I still find it very hard for me to kind of go through the lessons. I'm still kind of overcoming that fear. And I think for me, it's like a fear of success more than a fear of failure,
I feel that.
For that matter. But but so you did that. So you're learning Spanish as you go here too. So this is a learning opportunity on all fronts. You're defining your process more. You're creating a very specific style video that, corporate industries and the commercial space are always looking for. Like back in college, for my thesis, I did a training video for the Monmouth Oral Communication Center that we had at Monmouth University down here in New Jersey. And that style video is something that I was able to add to my reel and market that across to all of the corporate positions that I was applying to. And everyone was really, really impressed because those, when I think of like HR training videos, or any type of training video, you think of those like old ones that you used to watch where it was like these cheesy skits and like very boring and these terrible, right? Right. Oh my gosh. And these terrible graphics, but now they're very professional and they're neat and they're clean and they're effective. And that's, I think, the major difference. So what a wonderful experience that was for you to now have that under your belt and know that you can probably now with like a couple dozen under your belt be able to crank it out no problem.
Right. And now we're evolving the program. We've introduced Designscapes Colorado Academy. So right now it houses all those videos that I've created, but we are looking to shift it more into like a training platform. So people can, if they are in one position and are looking to move up, we'd be like, okay, you need to take these courses and master these skill levels, and that way you can move on to those next that next position. And, that benefits, the company all around because, we're developing our people within house too. So I'm very excited to continue that. And I'm obviously looking for ways that I can improve it to make it more interactive because my voice can be somewhat monotone. So I'm like, okay, how do I make this more exciting? I want people to pay attention all the way or mostly the way throughout. So yeah, it's always like keeping it more interactive and fresh. And, that's obviously evolving me as a filmmaker.
Absolutely. How much pre-planning goes into those training style videos? Because when I did it back in college, I had like 1 or 2 videos to make, so the planning was pretty simple. But if you're expanding a program that is designed to, help employees reach the next level, I'm assuming that you're making a few videos and you can't just start a video and then try to figure out the second or third or fourth video. Right. I'd imagine you have to pre-plan everything at the beginning and then start filming, right?
Yeah, so we're still trying to figure out the kinks in this process, but my idea behind at least the video portion of it is to go to each of the team's managers or other staff members and identify what the need is. Like, what do we want these team members to learn? And then from there, kind of seeing what's important, them writing down the points, because I don't know everything that they want to touch on. So having them do the research and kind of put together a rough draft will help me and save time as well. So I can focus on, okay, this is the order that we need to do. Like, let me clean up this, that, and the other. And then we can move on into filming. Because beforehand, when I didn't do that, we'd go to review it with the managers. They'd watch the video and be like, oh, you need to add this, 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 and this. And I'm like, oh, well, this is not going to look very cohesive now and stuff. And, taking those steps beforehand, obviously there'll probably still be edits after filming, but at least I mitigated the most that I can in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. What is because I'm also assuming you're kind of intercutting this footage with B-roll. Mm-hmm. And stuff like that. So what does your content management look like? Because if you're out on the job site most days, I imagine you have a large library of footage and B-roll that you've captured. Are you labeling? How are you storing? Because I'm sure it's easier to also reference what you've already recorded than having to record net new B-roll for every video.
Right. And the tough part about that too is, I've recorded whatever B-roll in the past and then my skills have developed. So obviously I want to go back and get new, like more stylized shots because my skills have evolved. And, I kind of don't use that past library of shots, but, there may be some that I could pull. But right now I just go out to job site, film, title what I filmed, and then it kind of just sits on my Gtech drive, and I'll reference it if I need it. Like, I know where it is. I don't have that'd be cool though, a certain library where you can type in some keywords and then pops. Maybe Premiere Pro needs to integrate that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So the next project I want to talk about is still with Designscapes Colorado, the brand videos. Mm-hmm. I saw the ones that they were it was music and it was just landscape, like different shots of the what am I trying to say? Like the architecture and the shrubbery. Yeah, my landscape vocab isn't exactly where it needs to be.
It takes
time. Bushes and shit. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So I'm curious, why did you go that route with it? Just the imagery with no voiceover or anything. I think it's so fitting, but I don't know if I would have seen that and thought to do that. So, kind of what was your process with those specific videos? Did you know that from the beginning that you just wanted to do kind of imagery and music?
Yeah, pretty much, because I didn't really have a certain direction or like narration. Obviously I could have narrated like, we meticulously selected whatever. But I knew like these videos were going to be for social and it was going to be short, quick content, because what inspired it was those quick videos that you'd see on Instagram of somebody, let's say, putting like a holiday basket together. And, that kind of like sparked it. And I'm like, why don't we have anything of our portfolio that kind of like takes you through the property? I know photos did it, but video can do it a little bit better, like hearing the sights and or hearing the sounds that you would if you were actually out there, and, like kind of having people envision that in their space. Like some of the properties we do can be like very grand, and others are like more like average, like what I could afford. And so it's like taking people there and imagining like you can have something like this for your budget. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you also, I don't think I saw any drone footage in that. Do you fly a drone?
I want to. I'm hoping to get certified, hopefully. But yeah, I don't know. It frightens me because I'm like, I don't want to lose a drone. Like, those are expensive. I don't want it to fly into a mountain or in the river. I don't know.
Right. So that leads me to another question. The gear that you use for Designscapes Colorado, is that your own gear, or is that provided by the company and you just use it?
So the first couple of years it was my own gear, and then this past year I was able to purchase something through the company because, I was like, I'm doing this more frequently. Like, I think we need to use the company, and, my personal camera's a Canon, and then I was like, let me venture out and try Sony. So now I'm like, I think I may like Sony a little more. I don't know, but like they have their pros and cons, but that's also part of the process too, is like, I want to know what other cameras do and stuff. Obviously it's very expensive to rent or even buy another camera if you don't know if you're going to use it that often and stuff. So
right.
I was very fortunate to like be able to buy something that's a little bit different than what I'm used to.
Yeah. What camera are you rocking with now?
The A7S III for work, and then I have a Canon 5D Mark IV for my side hustle.
Very nice. Yeah. It's funny because I'd imagine also a challenge with Sony footage versus Canon footage is like, depending on if you shoot in log or not, it could be really challenging to edit together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So so the one project that I have that's the landscape through the seasons, that one I started shooting on my Canon, so I'm just continuing that project on my Canon. And then because I know there's some settings you can do to get the Canon picture profile, but I was like, I'm not gonna risk it. I'm just gonna continue to shoot on the Canon until this project's done.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next project I want to talk about is there was a permanent residency nomination ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
That was completely virtual.
Yes.
And here I am watching this video on your page, and I'm getting emotional watching it.
Yes,
and I'm
that's
like,
perfect.
This is freaking Zoom footage.
Yeah,
and
right?
Here I am, shedding a tear for these graduates of this program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how, like, first of all, I mean, you've covered in-person things, obviously, and events like weddings and stuff.
Right.
How different did your process have to be with recording something and planning out a video that was completely virtual?
So that one was, I think that one was really tough because, I had this vision in my head of how I wanted to turn out, but I also had to be realistic with my expectations because during that video, while the owner was announcing who was receiving that stuff, I was on that side of things, and all of our crews are spread out throughout the Denver metro area. So the people that were nominated, they were at different places, and, I couldn't like run around and get their reactions and stuff. And so the content that my coworkers were able to get with just their phones was like very helpful, and it helped excel that story because Zoom, you can only get so much. But I also set up another camera for the shot of my owner, saying the names, and then cutting to Zoom footage of people's reactions if they'd pop up, or like a couple of teammates clapping, or that one where our HR manager is crying. Like that was, I mean, those were all very lucky because Zoom, it just clicks through. But yeah, I think for what I was given in that moment, I think it turned out really well. And obviously I just wanted it to be a short promotional video because this program is life-changing for all of the employees that have gone through it and stuff, and to give them a head start on their citizenship here in the United States is like pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, following up on this video, I was watching the internship video that you did with the young gentleman who was just talking about how transformative the program was, and that one was getting me too. I mean, it's just I think I just, and that's why I say I think it's your editing, because So I want you to walk me through like that internship kind of interview video, the testimonial video. Are you planning your questions, kind of vetting them with the interviewee, the person you're interviewing? Is the interviewee following a script of some sort? What is your process like for that video? Are you recording it and then getting the B-roll later? How does that work?
So that was all pretty organic. I had my list of questions that I refer to, but I would tell the interviewee, like, they're not an actor. So I was like, we're just having a conversation, and just, answering these questions on like your true feelings about the program and stuff. So we'd have the interview first, and then I would go out and, get their schedule and be like, okay, where are you going to be? And go out and shoot their kind of day, for that, and then piece it together that way. Since I didn't really know what they were gonna say to the questions, I had to kind of wait before I could fully start to plan, because once I interviewed them, then that started getting the juices flowing of okay, I can get a shot of them doing this and then this and then this, and that's kind of how the process evolved.
Nice, but you were kind of going because after the interview, then you have to follow them on their day that same day, or were they 2 different interview days?
It'd be like it would be like throughout the week or whatever. It wouldn't be like back to back.
Got it. Man, I mean, this Designscapes Colorado place, this gig that you have, I can't emphasize enough as an outsider looking into this, how much of an awesome opportunity this must be for you to be able to have the creative freedom and like the portfolio. This job is worth it for the portfolio pieces alone.
The diversity. Yeah, definitely. Can't. Sometimes, we all have our moments of, frustrations at our jobs and stuff. But then I look back on like, this, like you bring up all these videos. I'm like, oh, wow, I have done some cool stuff. And then just what I have like in the wheelhouse too, that's coming up, I'm like very, very excited about. So yeah, definitely this job has been a huge blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited I'm really excited to see what you continue to create with them, and I'm going to be just checking back on your social media, checking back on your website to see more places or more pieces. So sure. I had a question, switching gears back to wedding films. The wedding you filmed are stunning. It's funny, I could tell by your editing style that you were a solo shooter because I take full-time filmmaker. I know that, if she only showed this side of it for X seconds, that's because she didn't have the rest of it. She had to switch to the other side. But anybody else watching that wouldn't be able to pick up on that. That's kind of like just a filmmaker kind of secret, I guess.
For sure, yep.
But you do elopements and smaller ceremonies as well as bigger ones. I wanted to know, what's the real difference between the two for you in filming those? Are there any differences technically, or just how the day goes?
Yeah, I would definitely say how the day goes. For elopements and small ceremonies, it's definitely more laid back. Like there's still a schedule, but it's like, okay, we're running a little behind, but that's okay, sort of thing. And obviously with the elopement that I filmed, it was probably like 30-minute ceremony. And then the small wedding that I just did, it was actually my first small wedding, was probably like 4 to 5 hours of filming. And then for the bigger weddings, it's definitely a lot more involved. There's a set schedule to follow because you only have the venue for X amount of time and stuff. And, It's like, okay, on to the next one, on to the next one. So for the bigger weddings, it's definitely more fast paced and, more on your toes. And then elopements and small weddings, it's more laid back. And I feel like it's also, I get to spend more time with the couples in a weird sense. Like they're not like, I don't know how to describe it, but I just think it's more intimate, definitely, with the smaller weddings and elopements.
Yeah. Do you have a preference between the two or three?
I think I like the smaller weddings and elopements because, they kind of like my job at Designscapes Colorado. I've been to places that I didn't know existed in Colorado. And I'm like, I know my state is great, but like, I've never been here. I've never been here before. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that exploration part too, because I love to travel. So seeing new places and stuff really, I love it.
Awesome. So I have one more piece of
Yeah.
content, one more project that I want to bring up before we start wrapping up here. So I saw on your Instagram that you had kind of a macrame plant hanger that you filmed, and it just, first of all, it made me want to buy one, but it just really enforced to me that I should be creating with what's around me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like pick an object in my house,
Right.
film it, make a little commercial for it, and you know, I'm adding to my portfolio, but I'm also kind of keeping flexing that creative muscle, if you will.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that specific project. Was that just a personal thing you wanted to do on your own? Were you paid by the company, sponsored by the company to do that?
No, so that was completely on my own. So like with you, like what you just said, like I'm like, how am I going to create more content this year? Because that was always like a goal of mine each year, but I wasn't fully executing it. And so one day I had the idea, I was like, why don't I, because that macrame, that plant hanger.
Macklemore? No.
I say it wrong and my friend makes fun of me, so I'm like, oh, I better not say it. But that plant hanger was actually done by a former teammate, so she has her own business. And so I was like, I need a plant hanger for one of my plants. And then I got it and I was like, why don't I make a short little video for this? So I made the video and, you know, I wasn't expecting to get paid or anything. And I sent it to her like, hey, I made this video, like feel free to use it on your social media. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like, thank you so much. And that's awesome. And so kind of, you know, again, starting with the connections that you have, because a lot of some of my friends, they have their own clothing brands or like their own little Etsy businesses and stuff. So kind of taking the things that are around me and, you know, even though it was like something so small, like it, again, I learned from it and then it was able to bring me to the next stage of it too.
Yeah, and especially during the pandemic, that must have been so helpful to know that you can utilize the connections that you have and the products and stuff that's around you. And so, because I know for a lot of people that meant the pandemic meant not going out and seeking new business or not, you know, meeting in person or going on big shoots and large productions. It was making the most with what you have. And I think that you did that, and that video is just the perfect example. So I just had to bring it up.
And yeah, I've gotten that compliment a lot. Like it made me like, I don't have any plans, but I want to buy one of those. And that's, you know, like, and then again with the emotion part, like you said that you were tearing up for those last couple of videos, like it truly, what I learned from college, like you have to tell a story in order for it to get those emotions. And, you know, I like, my work here is done is when I hear like, oh, I started crying, or like, oh, it made me laugh or whatever, made me want to buy that plant hanger. I was like, yes, I did it. That's what I was going for. Like I get so much joy of hearing like, oh my gosh, that made me cry. And I was like, yes, I got an emotion. Like it'll stick with you because you had that like connection with the video.
Yeah, absolutely. That's marketing.
It's see, yeah. That's very true.
It all comes back to marketing.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So I want to know, we're going to do some closing questions now. I want to know what it would mean to you to have a network of female filmmakers.
Ooh, I think a lot of the past guests have said this. Like, I think there's been that stereotype stigma that we are all in competition with each other. And I know I definitely feel that. And I feel like I can't connect because I'm like, well, we're still all competing against each other. But then I think back to soccer, and I had friends that were on different teams and we're all competing against each other, but we were still friends at the end of the day. And I think it's just, you know, bouncing those ideas or asking for help. Like if I needed, like on a wedding, like, hey, I need a second shooter. Would you be willing to come help me and stuff like that? And, you know, you kind of, again, you grow by learning from other people. Like I could meet somebody that has a completely different style of filmmaking, does a completely different industry of stuff, and, you know, learn a ton from them. So I think the value would be, you know, obviously creating friendships, but also learning and growing more in our craft. Yeah.
And the learning and growing more in a safe space too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which I think makes all the difference. And I mean, at this point in time, this podcast for me still is just an inspiration. Hearing, you know, your story, hearing all the other female filmmakers' stories, for me right now, it's kind of just reinforcing in my brain and kind of just dropping this idea in there every time I speak to one of you that, you know, you do belong in this space. You can do this. You know, there are different journeys, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show. And it's really inspiring. Now, I haven't kind of gotten the self-motivation to yet go out and practice what I've been hearing, but I think that that'll just come. Everybody has their own journey, and I thought that that inspiration would automatically mean that I would grab my camera and that I would run out and go shoot, and that I would send my work to all of you guys and get feedback. But I think everybody's journey looks a little different in that way, and that for right now, I'm okay with this just being, just a sense of joy and inspiration, and then, waiting for my time to come where I get past that fear and actually go out and start creating.
Right. It's all a process too. Like, I was never like this gung-ho, like very early on. Like, this is all evolved 5 years later and stuff. And it's just finding what you like, what you enjoy. Never did I think I would do a wedding again, film a wedding, but here I am doing weddings on the side and like enjoying it too, because I'm learning the different style I can create in creating a love story and stuff. So I think, it's just all a process, and, you gotta take a risk. Like, you're taking a risk with this podcast, and you put yourself out there to do it. And so like, that's the first step. And then from there, who knows where this can go.
Absolutely. So what is one thing about your story that you want the people listening today to remember?
Oh, that's deep. I'm
trying to catch up to your level here with the emotion. You gotta draw the
I don't even think I'm that emotional, or that, telling. My friends would say something completely different, but I think it goes back to what I just said. I think it's also our culture. There's no overnight success stories. For me, I'm still like battling a lot of stuff in my craft, and, like trying to push myself to continue to have that motivation. Now I'm dealing with, I want to make sure I don't burn out with all these projects that I'm taking on, and then, just completely stop or like not care about my work. So I think, just realizing with anything, like, it's a process, and I don't think, again, there's no necessary level of mastery of anything until you maybe die. I
was wondering how you're going to end that sentence until you just kick the can.
I don't know where this is going. But just like, just taking, again, everything day by day, step by step, and giving yourself grace too, because we can also be very hard on ourselves. And I know I definitely can be, but just giving yourself the grace to grow and just continue to push and get better, and know that, like, okay, with this gig, like, I may not know everything, but I'm gonna learn something new with this, and just doing the best that I can with it.
Seeing everything as a learning opportunity, an opportunity for you to get a little bit closer to your end goal. But you're right, it's all a process for sure.
Yes, for sure.
So how can the viewers and listeners of this podcast support you, Marissa, as a filmmaker?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel and Vimeo channel. The YouTube channel is very fresh, so it could use some loving.
Awesome. Well, we know where to find you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Marissa. I was so excited to talk to you. Hearing the insights of all your projects and kind of your process has really been eye-opening for me. And I might definitely reach out to you as I get the courage to maybe kind of reach out to a client and start a brand video, because I think that you have some really, really amazing experience. And I encourage anyone listening to this podcast to reach out to Marissa and kind of, support her on her journey. But thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was something that was definitely out of my comfort zone too, talking on a podcast, but I had a lot of fun, and it was very insightful, and doing some self-reflection and just seeing like how far I come, and this has been encouraging to continue that journey.
Amazing. All right, as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next episode. Bye.